Thank you for joining me on this Friday morning. Hola. Are you guys? No. Okay, you're here for the panel. Sorry, I'm getting all excited. I'm like, oh, do they have the part? No. Okay. Anyway, just a little bit about me and my pink microphone. I grew up in Tokyo, Japan. I lived in Tokyo for about 30 years. So I really spent most of my life there. I moved there when I was 5 with my family. My dad was a professor of linguistics at a Japanese private university. And I went through the international school system. And I started working in Tokyo when I was about 19. I started working for radio. There was a brand new radio station that was opening up then, and so I worked with them. And our whole thing was international radio, American artists kind of thing. But anyway, that's what led to me getting into voice work as well. So I've done a lot of work for video games, which is one of the reasons I started coming to conventions. I do a lot of fighting game voices, Tekken, you might know Nina Williams, Christy Monteiro. Also, Virtua Fighter, I do Sarah Bryant. Shenmue, I do 3 characters from Shenmue. And all Crazy Taxi, a lot of the old school arcade games I've done voices for. So, and I do speak fluent Japanese, so I do also do a lot of interpreting as well for all kinds of clients. I'll do interpreting for conventions. So I just recently was at Anime Expo where I did interpreting for the producer and director of Pop Team Epic. I don't know if you guys know the anime, great team. They were so wonderful to work with. Or Love Live Sunshine Aquas, I did interpreting for them as well. So I do a lot of conventions, but I also do a lot of interpreting for more quote unquote serious clients like Lockheed Martin. I've worked with Tokyo Marine Insurance, which is a really big company, Toyota, Panasonic. So anything and everything, I kind of do it. That's kind of my gig. But I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to, bless you, being on the convention scene and getting to meet people who have either a passion or curiosity for Japan. Because, of course, for me, when I was growing up, there was not that much awareness about Japan. And I just remember as a kid, sometimes we would come back for like a 6-month sabbatical, right, for my dad's work. And I would get asked the most stupid questions, and it drove me crazy. Even when I was in college, I went to college for 1 year, and I only went for 1 year just because I couldn't take it anymore because I was tired of people coming up to me. So, do they have cars in Japan? And I'm looking at them like, you ignorant American, you're probably driving a Japanese car. But you know, it was, I mean, and there were, oh, yes, perfect. Hold that thought. It doesn't work? Okay. Yes, okay. Hopefully. Let me see. Oh, is the projector not on? Oh. You could be right. You are right, I think. Sorry, this might be a little bit like Dumb and Dumber. I'm trying to figure things out. You'd think I get it down by now, but I haven't. Thank you for assisting me, sir. But yeah, I used to get asked, oh, okay, I think we are connected. No, maybe not. I used to get asked, you know, like I don't know, the weirdest questions. Or in 8th grade or 7th grade, I was living in South Carolina for just half a year, and my best friend was so sad that I was moving back to Japan. So she said, oh, don't worry though, next year I'll have a driver's permit so I can drive out to Tokyo to visit you. I'm like, good luck with that. All right, yeah. Oh, yay. Okay, perfect. And that's my kitty, one of my cats. There's my other cat. Awesome. Okay. So, needless to say, there wasn't as much awareness about Japan or things Japanese culture, culturally or even traditionally, whatever. And so, my first experience at a convention, I just thought, oh my gosh, where were you guys when I was growing up? I needed you so badly. So that has kind of led to, I've been going to conventions now probably for about 7 or 8 years, and I go to probably about 2 a month. And I really, really enjoy interacting with everyone during my panels and just getting to meet, people who have really enjoyed my work over the years. But one of the questions that I would always get asked is, I'm planning a trip to Tokyo or to Japan, and can you give me some tips on going to Japan? So I thought, why don't I come up with a panel? I still go to Japan probably 2 or 3 times a year, so I try to keep the information really relevant as well. And I'm planning on going back for the Olympics in 2020. I'm very excited about that. So let me just get a show of hands. How many of you are thinking about planning a trip, or you're already planning? Nice. Good, 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 good. That really makes me happy because I've been doing this panel now, this Destination Tokyo panel, for quite a while, and I am seeing more and more hands raised when I ask that question. So it used to be, oh, I just can't because I can't afford it. And I have to kind of dispel those, that's old wives. So you can absolutely afford a trip to Tokyo. I think that one of the things that you always have to do when you're starting a trip, you have to figure out, first of all, what is the most important thing that you want to get out of Japan? Is it food? There are a lot of people who are foodies, so they want to go and experience all the Japanese cuisine, or washoku as we call it. Or is it more about the Japanese cultural elements, like the festivals and what have you? Anyway, so this PowerPoint that I'm going to be showing you, while we're looking at my cats, but it kind of gives you some insight into some of the latest options available for you for a trip. I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible, so if you guys have questions. And feel free, if you have a question about something that I'm asking, you can always, hold on, okay, here. You can always, raise your hand and interrupt me if you would like. Welcome to Destination Tokyo. Irashaimase. Now, does anyone know this city right here? So this is Shibuya. Many of the pop cultural trends come from Shibuya. Shibuya is one of the youth culture capitals of Tokyo. Shibuya actually, though, used to be a temple way, 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 way back in the day. Obviously, it's not anymore. Shibuya is also where, if you see any movies, Lost in Translation, which I was in, by the way, Lost in Translation, Fast and Furious, Kill Bill films, a lot of them, you'll see footage, and it'll come from Shibuya. Always. They'll always have some stuff from there. But like I said, it is where a lot of the music trends, fashion trends, and even a lot of anime and manga, they get a lot of influence from Shibuya. So this is Shibuya. And this, can you see that? Yeah. So this right here, the Shibuya 109, is the mecca for Japanese designers, especially with Lolita and all kinds of designers that, when you've made it, you are showing in 109. So that's kind of the fashion capital. Now this, of course, is you've probably seen this crossing before. It's called Scramble Crossing, or in Japanese, Kuramburu Kosaten. And just to give you an idea of how many people go through Shibuya during a day, this is a Starbucks right here. And this Starbucks used to be, for quite a few years, it was the most busy Starbucks in the world because of all the people traffic that would go through it. I actually spent, when I was doing radio for a very long time, I also DJ'd at a really cool, it's like a Tower Records, and we had a live DJ booth that would do on-air radio to the streets of Shibuya. And to this day, it's probably one of my favorite jobs I ever did. But I was also able to experience, because it started out in 91, I believe I started doing it. And so I was able to see the growth of Shibuya as a city. And also, they even have what's called Shibuya-kei, which is Shibuya music. And it was a specific genre, which was very influenced by American pop culture and everything, but definitely had a Japanese sensibility to it. So it definitely is a really cool area to go visit. And then in Shibuya, you also have, of course, Hachiko, which you guys probably maybe have heard of. It's a famous meeting place. It was also made into a movie by Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez. Not that good of a movie, I've heard, but oh well. And then you literally go one stop on the JR Yamanote line, which is 2 minutes, or you can walk to Harajuku. And this is another part of youth culture. This is another mecca, I guess, for more towards people who are trying to be discovered. A lot of once more fashion designers, sometimes hairstylists, even idols. A lot of idols get discovered in Harajuku. And this street right here is called Takeshita Dori, or Takeshita Street. And what it does is it's like a really long and narrow street with lots of people, as you can tell, but then it branches out. So you can kind of go into all these little branch streets, and you can find all kinds of really, really cool stuff. Now, if you're into, my niece is very into BTS and K-pop, and you can find tons of that kind of stuff, like, you know, especially, or if you're really into SMAP, like a lot of the idol groups, you can find tons and tons of stuff here. It's also home to Lolita, so you get a lot of the Lolita style there. And people sometimes will just dress in their best costumes or their best clothes or whatever, and then they will kind of hang out and they'll wait to be discovered. So it's a really cool area. You know, when I was a kid, and this happens still sometimes, but one of the main streets on Harajuku, which is called Omotesando, it would shut down on Sundays, and musicians from all over Japan would come out. Some of them would kind of, you know, do this little Fonzie, like, yo, I'm too cool for school kind of thing. But then you would also have all kinds of musicians just come out and, you know, do and promote their own music, but then also sometimes just hang out with other musicians and jam or whatever, which, you know, it might not sound like a really cool thing, but in Japan, which is, in many ways, it's hard to see a lot of that creativity in an everyday life situation. So it's always really refreshing to be able to see people just come out and be like, yep, I'm here, deal with it. You know, this is who I am, and I'm just going to start jamming on the street, even if I don't sound good. Like, they just do it anyway. So it's really cool. Harajuku is also home to crepes. You have to get crepes if you go to Harajuku. When I was a kid, we would always go to the crepe shop. It's like French crepes, and they are amazing. Another thing that I highly, highly, highly recommend in Japan, if you are not such a big foodie, but you love bread and pastries, the bakeries there are absolutely amazing. And, you know, yes. And you can, you know, and they're not that expensive, like $2, $3 usually for one pastry. So you can save a lot of money that way by just buying bread every day and being very happy and satisfied. And then you can, you know, if you're worried about the weight, you can lose it later. Who cares? Life is short. Now, also part of Harajuku, and it is literally right next to Harajuku Station, is Meiji Jingu-mae, or Meiji Shrine. And this is one of the biggest shrines in Tokyo. Used a lot over the New Year's holiday, a lot of the holidays, other holidays, national holidays, but especially for the New Year's holiday when they go and they make the trek where they can go and ask for good luck or good fortune for the new year. So Meiji Shrine, and it's a beautiful shrine. You can go in, just walk in. And one of the things that I really enjoy about Tokyo and other parts of Japan as well is that you will, a lot of times, you know, people get so worried about getting lost when they're in a foreign city or foreign country. But I always tell, oh, you guys can see until now? I'm sorry. Thank you, Ginger. I appreciate the teamwork. But one of the things that I think is so wonderful about Japan, and even in Tokyo, which is in many ways kind of a concrete city, but you will find these little temples, sometimes little shrines, or sometimes big temples, and it gives you a great way of relaxing and just escaping from that hustle bustle and just kind of recentering yourself. And the Japanese love taking advantage of that. And sometimes the only way you can really discover a temple or even an amazing mom and pop restaurant is by getting lost. So it sounds weird, but I always, you know, when people tell me, they're like, I'm so worried about getting lost. And I just tell them, you know, just go with it. If you can, you know, just make sure that you have information so that you can get back to wherever it is you're staying. But I think one of the most important things about going to a foreign country, especially in my opinion, especially a country like Japan, is you really discover some of the best things when you do get lost, when you go off the beaten path, you know. So in my opinion. Anyway, so that was Meiji Jingu, Meiji Shrine. Now, another area that has recently been getting a lot of attention is in Ginza. Oh, thank you. Was Ginza. There we go. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. So Ginza is known as the entertaining center, more older audience. This is where you will find a lot of the quote-unquote omakase dinners, which are the really expensive dinners where you pay sometimes $500. You just go in and you tell the chef, omakase, which basically means you're just leaving it in their hands and then they'll take care of you. And so needless to say, I don't go there and eat when I'm there, unless someone else is paying. But this is very much more of a businessman go. If you're there for a business trip, a lot of times they will take you to Ginza, where you will eat in this gorgeous, you know, sometimes a woman will come out in the kimono and then, you know, she'll give you all the food and everything. But also it's where a lot of the host and hostess clubs, well, especially hostess clubs, that whole culture really started in Ginza, is one of the areas that it's become popular. So it's a little bit more of an old school entertaining, so a little bit of an older demographic, but nonetheless a really, really cool area. They recently opened a brand new huge shopping mall. One of the reasons they opened this is for the Olympics, which is coming up in 2020, and it's called Ginza 6. And Ginza 6 currently has all kinds of cultural events. So everything from, I'm good friends with, I don't know if you know, Shimaguchi Tetsuro. He did like the choreography for Kill Bill and stuff like that. And he has a sword troupe, a sword choreography troupe. And him and his wife, Mika Kobayashi, who does a lot of anime themed songs, they perform there all the time. So there's always really cool, even ikebana, like, you know, flower arrangement. And they're always having free events that you can go and check out, and you can get to go and appreciate some of the, you know, really cool traditional aspects of Japanese culture. So if you are planning a trip, I highly recommend starting early so that you can look into all these things that they are offering for free, so then that way, you know, you can use your, you know, the money on other areas. Ginza also, this was during the bubble economy, so the beginning of the late 80s, early 90s. Ginza was the most expensive property in the world. So this building right here, the Wako building, for a very long time, this little corner department store was the most expensive real estate in the world. And in fact, the family that owned it, the guy who owned it. He actually, I believe, killed himself because he couldn't pay the land taxes because it was just too much. But yes, Ginza is a very fascinating place. And with that, you also they have what's called the Kabukiza, which is where you can go and watch some kabuki, which is also really cool as well. A lot of the new, more high-end hotels are in Ginza now too. And right near Ginza, you can find the Imperial Palace, or as we call it, the Teikoku Palace. And right now is a very interesting time in Japan because the emperor is going to be stepping down. And this hasn't happened, I don't think, ever. Or maybe it has, but this is going to change first of all, it's going to change the year for the Japanese because we say 2018. In Japan, what they do is they have Showa, and right now it's actually Heisei. So they come up with a certain name for this period that the emperor is ruling. They have not come up with a name yet for the upcoming emperor, and they haven't actually said what they are going to be doing as far as what's going to happen when the emperor steps down. But this is going to be a very, very, very big deal for the Japanese. And the emperor and the empress are still very involved, like on the different holidays, whatever. They'll come out to the throne and they'll wave to people, and sometimes they'll give a message and everything. And just to give you an idea of how much they're respected in Japan, when the news anchor, talks about the imperial hotel or the imperial family, they always use a much higher form of formal Japanese, polite Japanese. So they still are very relevant, I believe, to the Japanese culture. Now, you can go for a tour. In fact, and a lot of people it's around a moat. It's surrounded by a moat, so it's a really cool walk as well. A lot of times there are marathons or like 5Ks or something centered around the Imperial Palace, which is really cool too. But you can take a tour up to a certain point, but then after that, of course, they won't allow you in. But it's a really cool thing, I think, to experience. So, and then we have Shinjuku. Shinjuku is kind of the business district of Tokyo. It's also where a lot of the mafia hang out. And that includes Japanese, Chinese, all kinds of mafia. They all hang out there, of course. It's also the city of neon lights. So did any of you guys see Lost in Translation by any chance? Cool. Okay, so the Lost in Translation, a lot of it was based in Shinjuku. But Shinjuku is also a great place. They have an area called Shinjuku Golden Gai, these buildings have been the same and since World War II. Super, super small buildings. It's like a really long street. And basically all these little buildings have been turned into bars. So you can go in, and every bar has a different theme. Some of them are really cultural, and then you'll have like one, with like a little karaoke and what have you. But it's also another very cool kind of retro Japan. And if you enjoy drinking and just getting to hear stories, because they're really small. Every single bar probably holds 2 to 3 people, 5, or, it's that small. And they're all very different. You can get a lot of really interesting insight into the culture and just into different people if you go to Golden Guys. So that's another really cool thing that I like to recommend. This is what it looks like on the top. I know, it's very crowded. Now they also have a lot of pop culture. They're trying to bring out that whole Japanese pop culture that we all love and adore. And one of the cool things, we all love the high-tech aspect of Japan. So the VR Zone Shinjuku is brand new, and you can you know, like immerse yourself in various worlds like Gundam, Dragon Ball Z, Mario Kart. So this is brand new. So this just opened, I believe, last year. And then they also welcomed the new Godzilla, of course. I know. That's what I heard. I heard it. I haven't seen him. I know. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Just like the red carpet with art. So you can find a lot of really cool things in Shinjuku, but then you can also find the more traditional, like Shinjuku Gyoenmai is one. Gyoen is one of the biggest parks, I believe, in Tokyo, if not the biggest, and it's also where a lot of the hanami take place. You know, when they go to do the cherry blossom viewing and everything, it's one of the most popular spots. But it's just an absolutely lovely, big, just green paradise in this concrete city, kind of, you know. So I have friends that actually live not too far from Shinjuku Gyoen, so I'll sometimes go there. But it, you know, I highly recommend that if you do go to Tokyo, that you make sure that you experience some of the nature as well as the high tech and like the, you know, pop culture and everything. Now, Japan's also known for all their themed stuff as well, starting with the ninja restaurant, of course, and then the robot restaurant, which is in Shinjuku. I've never actually been to this, but I have friends that have, and they said that it was almost like being in a episode or a scene in Blade Runner or something. It was just really, it was really crazy and out there. Now you can go, and you can actually get tickets. I know for the Blade Run, for the robot restaurant. You can get them online. A lot of other museums and everything are starting to offer stuff online as well. So make sure that you, as I mentioned before, make sure you start planning early so that you can get the tickets for what you want to go see. And then now they have a new Unicorn Gundam. This is one that, you know, they used to have a Gundam over in an area called Odaiba, and it was literally you would be coming in, because I always come in from Narita Airport. I would come by the limousine bus, so it would be like a by bus, and I would go right by the Gundam statue. And it was always one of these things where I'm like, yep, I'm here in Tokyo now. I see Gundam. Well, now they've changed it, and they've made it into a Unicorn Gundam, and it changes color 4 times a day. It's like a really cool area called Odaiba, which, from what I understand, is probably going to be a very important part in the hosting of the Olympics. The latest I heard was that it was possibly going to be used to host Olympic Village, because, you know, they're still trying to figure everything out, like how they're going to host all these people that are coming in. But yeah, and so here's the other part of the Unicorn Gundam. It changes into the Destroyer. And then here you have the DBZ Cafe, of course, Final Fantasy Cafe, and Sailor Moon Cafe. And there are many of these because they've been doing so well. Just recently in March, they opened a Pokemon Cafe. And now this is a brand, they have a Tokyo Fight Club in Shibuya. So, you know, if you're getting frustrated from being on the crowded trains and everything, you can go and release your stress in Tokyo Fight Club. But they're also coming up with a lot of more traditional style, or paying tribute to tradition, I should say, like the Edo-themed restaurant. Like this one just opened 2 years ago. And so it's kind of a way of getting to experience the more traditional side of Japan. Because I'm such a cat lover, they have many, many cat cafes all over. And in fact, right now they have a new, and it's in Harajuku. It's that area that I told you about, you know, the really long street called Takeshadori. You go all the way down to the end of Takesha Street, and right across the street, there's this really big building that has a Shiba cafe. So Shiba dogs, yes. And then Bengal cat cafes. See, these are things that are important to me, I have to say. And that's brand new. So they have. Now, do you guys know why, besides, you know, being so cute, do you know why these pet cafes and everything are so popular. So there's actually, I actually did a report when I did a lot of work with NHK with a show called Tokyo Eye, and we went out on the street and we did a report on cats and the significance behind cats. We did the whole, the good luck maniki neko cat as well. We talked about that. But one of the things that I learned through doing that report was that really one of the most important elements to cat cafes, dog cafes, and here you'll find hedgehog cafes, owl cafes. But these are also, of course, super cute, a little gimmicky, kind of fun, trendy. But one of the reasons it's become such a popular thing, and that I think the Japanese really enjoy going to these cafes so much, is because the average Japanese apartment is probably about 6 tatami mat, rokujo, right? So it's a very, very, very small space. They can't have pets a lot of times. So once more, kind of how I feel with like the temples and the shrines and everything, it's just a really great way to recenter yourself and to kind of just, not worry about your boss yelling at you all the time at lunch, and or like you can kind of just escape from all that. And I actually did interview quite a few, because there were quite a few salarymen that were there at this cafe, the cat cafe that I went to, and I was asking them, and they said that they would come here on their lunch break just because they wanted to kind of get a way to get away from everything, from work pressure, from the boss yelling at you and what have you. And so it's actually not just about being a gimmick. It really is kind of a necessity in a way, I think, for them. And it's a great way to kind of humanize yourself again, So. And they also have where you can rent a butler if you would so desire, especially if you're a fan of Black Butler. No. Woo! Exactly. But this kind of goes back to the same kind of thing where a lot of times, Japan is a big city. It can be a lonely city, I find. And so sometimes it's really hard to get that human contact and just kind of be able to sit down with someone and talk to them. So they do have these rental services where you can rent a boyfriend, and it's not, and yeah, it is gimmicky and kind of sounds maybe weird, but there's also, behind that, you can also understand why they do something like that, So, and anyway, this is in Harajuku. If you would like to rent a butler for the day to hold your bag and what have you, open your doors. Now, one of my favorite times to go to Japan is Christmas. And as you can, come on. They love cosplay, so of course they're going to dress up as Santa and Rudolph and what have you. This was just a picture I took when I was in Japan for work a few years ago. I'm sure that probably some of you would know out there. What is the favorite food to eat over Christmas time? Yes. KFC. Exactly. KFC. Huh? They do not. No. Turkey is becoming a little bit, but no, they don't have very much turkey. You can find it, but it's usually more in the international supermarkets and what have you, and you can't find it all the time. Yeah. So yes, KFC. Even Colonel Sanders dresses up for the occasion. And they actually order ahead of time, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. And so 3 years ago, I was invited to a party, and I thought, I'll just pick up some KFC. I go there, and they laughed at me. They're like, nope, no more KFC. Unless you ordered, the deadline, I think, was like the week before, 2 weeks before, or something. They're like, nope, can't help you. I was like, oh, man, that sucks. But another thing, of course, is Christmas cake. They love Christmas cake. I love Christmas cake. This was always one of my favorite things from when I was a kid. And you get super small ones at the, even at the convenience store for like solo Christmas if you're spending the Christmas alone. But another favorite thing of mine of going to Japan during the Yeah, the illumination, as they call it, or like the Christmas lights, are amazing. Now, of course, they don't have really big living spaces, so it's not like they can really deck out their apartment or their house a lot of times. So what they do is the city is lit. And this is Tokyo Midtown, which I used to live literally across the street from Tokyo Midtown. And there is a line, though. It's about an hour, hour and a half sometimes. They usually start right around, I think, Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit before. And they'll keep it going, usually the illumination, all kinds of shows and lights and what have you. I think last year it was about sakura lights for some reason. That was the trend. So this is actually in an area called Meguro, and they had all these Christmas lights, but they were sakura. So, you know, who knows. And then, of course, and yes, he did. He had smoke coming out. Yeah, this was also from that area in Odaiba. Yes, you know, Godzilla has to be around for every single holiday. Now, the new holiday that they have taken and they have just supersized it and just, I mean, they now do Halloween like no one. I mean, it is crazy. 2 years ago, when I was in Japan, I was there for Halloween, and I had not been around for Halloween in 10 years, probably. So I was amazed at, I mean, restaurants all Halloween themed and all kinds of parties in Shibuya, the area. This area right here is where Hachiko, I showed you the dog, the meeting place. This is that area. You can't even see. I mean, it's everyone is just, they're all just, you know, diving in there. And they, I mean, when you think about it, it's the perfect holiday once more, right? Because it's cosplaying and you get to just have fun and, you know. And so I took some pictures. I thought that was really cute. Yeah. And even now they have JTB, which is the national tourist, or it's called the Japan Tourist Bureau. They actually have tours and everything coming in from Taiwan and other places in Asia so that other people can come and experience the Halloween experience. Like, that's how far, I mean, Halloween, they're like, what? America, you guys don't do it right. We do it right. So they love Halloween now. And of course, there are kids, but it seems to be more of an adult holiday. Now, this is another well, not holiday, but a time of year that a lot of people try to go to Japan. And of course, it's the hanami, or the cherry blossoms. Now, here you see this little blue tarp. This is here because people are reserving their spots. So, I mean, they are serious about their hanami viewing as well. So usually what they'll do is they'll send, like, you know, a new freshman employee or something, like, go and find us a good spot, you know, because companies will do hanami. You'll have, like, huge companies. You'll have little groups of, you know, just, I mean, it comes in all sizes. But it is an absolutely amazing time to go into Tokyo. However, I was supposed to be in Tokyo during the cherry blossom season, or during the peak, and last year, and it ended up 5 minutes. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry. But they ended up not coming for another week or so. I was so bummed. So if you do decide that that's one of the things you want to capture, then please make sure that you allow yourself time, because nature's nature, man. You just can't mess. You know, you just don't know. Of course, they have all these cool, fun things that come. These are all to celebrate hanami, because it's also a very big business holiday. You know, people will buy all this stuff to take to the hanami parties. So it's, in general, it's just a really big holiday in Japan. Another one of my favorite holidays is Tanabata, which is July 7th. It's a time when people will write a wish on there, a little piece of paper, and they'll tie it to a wish tree. And the area that I first lived in Japan, Sendai, which is northern part of Japan, is known for their Tanabata festival. They have one of the biggest, I think, in Japan. So we don't have that much time. But of course, New Year's holiday is one of the biggest holidays in Japan. And it's also a great time to come to Japan. But it's also, Tokyo becomes a bit of a ghost town because a lot of people end up going back to their relatives. So there are 2 times, like New Year's holiday and then also Obon, which is coming up, which is in August. Those 2 times in Tokyo can be, I don't know, it could be a good time because there aren't as many people, but then at the same time you might not get the actual scope of what exactly Tokyo is. But and then these are kadomatsu, and they're put out in front of every apartment. I would always have one in front of my apartment in Tokyo. You can get really small ones at a convenience store for like $5. But then also big buildings and just all businesses would all have this. And it's basically to ask for good fortune, prosperity in the new year. And so this is a very, very important. And as you can see here, pine represents longevity, and then bamboo, prosperity. And so it's kind of just a way to pray for, a good new year. And then the kimono that you can find. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. Sorry. Now, one of the things that is super important as well to your Japan experience is the konbini, which are amazing and very convenient. When I was still living in Japan, I used to pay all my bills, my gas bill, my phone bill, everything. And I would also sometimes get a lot of my meals at the convenience store. And then back in the day, when I first started working in radio, I would also send faxes, so I did it. So it really is a very convenient, very unlike a lot of the convenience stores I found here. Yes. Can they do that now? Oh, really? 7-Eleven. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, and they do. Japan has always been a cash society, and still is in some ways. But now they are accepting more debit cards, credit cards. Of course, they've been accepting for a while. But there are some places where you will find that they'll say genkin nomi, so we only take cash. So please be aware of that when you're planning the trip. Okay, let me see. And as far as, Wi-Fi has also been another thing that has been a frustration for a lot of tourism, for a lot of tourists, because they just assume that when you're in Japan, you'll be connected at all times. But actually, the Wi-Fi situation is not as good as people think. However, it is drastically changing. It's been one of the I think the biggest complaint that they've had, like in all the polling that they've done with tourists and everything. So now you can get free Wi-Fi at the subways, at the buses. A lot of places are starting to kind of accommodate that more. So good to know. And here is one of the most important trains that you'll probably ride. It goes in a big loop around Tokyo, the JR Yamanote. And a lot of the signage, as you can see here, this is a different train, but they have a lot of stuff in English, so it shouldn't be too intimidating or daunting for you. One thing I recommend, though, is please try to avoid being on the phone or like really talking loud, because Japanese really don't like that. And to this day, even when I'm in a public space, I always cover my mouth. It's something that I picked up in Japan because that's what we do. But they just don't like being in all your business, And so if you do talk really loud on the phone, on the train, you might get a little oba-chan come up to you and go, yeah, which is another experience that you might enjoy. But But like I said before, there are all kinds of really wonderful cultural experiences now. Like this was just happened in March, where they gave like a kimono experience, and they're trying to really bring out a lot of those traditions that people might not know about. You know, Japan is known nowadays more for the pop culture aspect. So, and you can even, if you're only there for a couple hours, even like a transit visa now, they have free tours available. And so they're really trying to step up the game and just kind of bring you more, or give you more ways to appreciate the culture. And this just happened not too long ago. This was a history of animation at the National Film Center. So they're always having these little exhibitions and what have you. The Snoopy Museum also was, and now it's going to be a permanent museum in an area called Machira. But I went and saw it, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. It was so cute. But because Japan, I think, has one of the largest Snoopy or Peanuts fan clubs. Yeah, I know. And then stuff like this, like a Shonen Jump celebration, you know, celebrating manga. And then here, I know I have to go. Sorry. Okay. But if you're looking for, and then here, the Ramen Museum, also Kamakura is a really good area to go to if you want to kind of escape from Tokyo, but you want to make it a day trip. I highly recommend. It's like 45 minutes, an hour by train, and they have a lot of really cool, funky restaurants and bars. It's by the ocean, so it's got a very different vibe from Tokyo. And then, of course, Hakone and the lovely Mount Fuji. I, as a Hello Kitty lover, highly recommend Sanrio Pudio Land. And of course, must not forget Ghibli Museum. If you do want to go to Ghibli, you need to buy your tickets so far in advance. So please be aware of that, because it's always, they only allow a certain amount to be floated out to the public, and then they, you know, a lot of times you can get them at the convenience store, but even that, it's just a real hard ticket to get. So please be aware of that when you're thinking about getting tickets. Now, this Tokyo Skytree is is kind of the new Tokyo Tower. And it was, I think it's been around for like 5-6 years now, but I believe it's the highest tower in Asia currently, or maybe not anymore though. But it's always got some really cool exhibitions going on as well. And then you have Tokyo Disney Sea, which is really cool. If you're a Disney fan, or even if you're not, then it's got a very different experience than Disneyland. And then, of course, we have Super Nintendo World opening in 2020. Now, once more, going back to my love for Hello Kitty, they just recently started a new Hello Kitty Shinkansen, of course. So you can find that. And also Hato Bus Tour, which is one of the oldest, probably most respected bus tours that you can find. They have all kinds of new tours that they're always coming up with. So there's just a plethora of information and stuff to do and everything. I think it's just really figuring out like what is the biggest priority for your experience. Like, is it about food? Is it about, you know. So on that note, we're going to leave you with some of my favorite English. Do not disturb the tiny grasses dreaming, or please refrain from barking to avoid nuisance to neighbors. And finally, as Rocking Emma says, crap your hands. So sorry I wasn't able to take any questions, but thank you so much for coming. I hope that you enjoyed and that it was informative, the panel. So we have 2 minutes. Oh, we have 2 minutes. Yay, thank you. Do we have, I'll just get one question. I'll field one question. Yes. It's usually around the end of March. So it would be, I would recommend like the end of March. Like it could be anywhere from March 20th until beginning of April. Yeah. But like I said, cherry blossoms have a mind of their own. And this is the one diva that they have in Japan. It's the cherry blossoms. They show up when they went to, and they leave when they went to. It's like, what? So, yeah. But if you can plan it appropriately. And actually what they do in Japan when they have an idea, but this also changes, but they will actually, when the weather report gives the information, usually it's at the beginning of January or middle of January, and they'll say this is when cherry blossom season is probably going to happen. This is going to be the peak. So they do come out with that information. And in fact, it's usually the lead story when it comes out in news. So if you kind of keep your feelers out there, you'll be able to get an idea of when it's going to be next year or the year after. But yeah. Yes, which is also gorgeous. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, Hyokuen store is amazing. Yes, yeah, exactly. Or the Daiso, which they have here. Yes, for the Wi-Fi, which yes, 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 sir. The Ramen Museum is in Yokohama. Which is about 30, 40 minutes from, maybe it'd be a little bit longer, but yeah, 45 minutes from Shibuya. So not very far. It's a really cool museum. Yeah, highly recommend. The what? Oh, yes, that's right. That's part of that, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you coming. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you for clapping.